Left unchecked, wilding pines could spread to cover up to 20% of the country within 20 years and cost the economy over $1 billion. Soho Properties covers 4 iconic stations in Central Otago, and around $1.2 million has been spent to date in wilding pine control. The properties are protected under the QE2 National Trust's largest open space covenant.
There's 55,000 hectares. It's owned by Soho Property Limited. The principal, well, the only shareholder is Mutt Lange. There's 4 pastoral leases. They're all adjacent. They take in 5 river catchments and part of the Codrona. He's got a very strong environmental conscience, and he's had his family actually looked at coming and immigrating to New Zealand when he was a child. So he's had a long interest in New Zealand. He came out over 3 years and went the length and breadth of the country and finally settled on purchasing Matatap and Mount Soho. The wilding issue is that basically our whole environment's going to change. Unless it's addressed, the country as we know it will be no more. And it's happening so quickly that it's scary. Initially with pastoral leases, one of the requirements of a lessee was to plant 20 acres or 10 acres of pine trees. The Crown was saying, well, you've got to have some forestry on this country because a lot of it was bare, and that's what they did. And a lot of the infestations come from those various plots that are right through the high country. We've got 3 main species that I see as the major enemy. Douglas fir, sycamores are a real problem, and larches. Larches are actually easy to kill, but they really move around. They go higher than our natives, and the Douglas fir in particular will overtake our native. Initially they move into the native and then ultimately they dominate it. It's generally where there's either been mining activity or there's been homesteads, or, you know, there's a seed source, and the infestation generates out from there. So we've just simply taken out the main points of seed source and then worked our way back in. But ultimately we are going to have a problem with, as you get closer to civilization, if you like, or the main Wakatip Basin, that's where a lot of the problems are. This one here, we've initially sprayed all the main seed source, and then we wait for a chance to let anything that's going to germinate, and then we'll go back in and take all of that out. Further over here, we had ground staff go right through and physically cut it out. We didn't want to take out our native flora, and you know, that's about 5 years ago that was done, and you can see up there that the regeneration's scary. But there's no seed source there, so when we do it again, we'll do it with a spray the second time. And hopefully the third time we'll go back in another 5 or 6 years, and hopefully by then we'll be seeing some marked difference. We'd like to see this come back into native, and once the needles drop off, and these will turn into skeletons, but they provide a degree of shade that natives really like, and we've got a good chance of establishing mountain beach in some of these areas. The soil and water values on a lot of this country, in our view, are actually more important than any potential grazing proposition. And we would like to see this go back into a pristine environment if we can achieve that, but we're certainly working in that direction.
How old is this? It's not a plantation, is it? It's self-seeded?
No, it's self-seeded from over where the old Welcome Home Hotel was. Apparently there were 2 trees over there, and they're responsible for this whole infestation on both of them.
We're sitting on the boundary of Coronet Peak Station, which is one of 4 properties owned by Soho Properties Limited, which is the principal shareholder is Mutt Lange. About 2 years ago, which is just when I started my job with QE2, Mutt approached us to protect the conservation values on these 4 properties via a QE2 covenant. QE2 registers covenants in perpetuity against the title of the land, so it binds any successive owners. When I picked up the job, Centre Otago is one of the larger QE2 regions in the country, but I had less covenants than any other region in the country. I think the average size of a QE2 covenant in New Zealand is around 40 hectares. My first job on the beat was this covenant, which upon survey turned out to be 52,000 hectares. So it's actually by far the largest QE2 covenant in the country. I think it's increased the area protected by about 25%. And that's not belittling all the smaller covenants around the country which protect really important biodiversity values, particularly in the lowland, more modified areas. But we were excited to have the opportunity to be involved in land protection on these properties. They've long been known as some of the most iconic stations in New Zealand, quintessential Centre Otago landscape with alpine areas, permanent snow, tussock grasslands, amazing biodiversity values. And then on top of that, we've had gold mining since the 1862, I think was the first strike and the shot over. And the landscape tells that story. QE2's role is to work alongside the landowner. The ethos is that principally it's the landholder's responsibility, but we help out through regular monitoring. We provide advice. Where the opportunity arises, we help assisting in getting other funds. And we've done some work with funding providers such as Central Lakes Trust and the Conservation Community Partnership Fund. So we're helping out there. And I think having QE2 involved certainly raises the profile of the property. And something that I'm still learning and I've been surprised about is just the number of people in the community that are involved in this property. Just in the short time I've been working with it, I've worked with the Arrowtown Community or Village Association, the Arrowtown Business and Promotion Association. DOC is obviously intricately involved with pine control and neighbouring land. And then you've got mountain bikers doing work on tracks and the Wakatip walkers doing work. So there's a real community involvement and also in wilding pine control, which is great.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.